Come on, guys. 1 minute. Albo, are you ready?
Get it together, guys. I'm ready, Patchy. You're holding us up. We don't want to be too late for the start of the conference. We need to move people right now.
Yeah, don't worry, Albo. The buses are always on time, mate.
Come on, Hainsey. Let's go.
Means you don't want to walk too far either, mate, so get as close as you can.
Been waiting for the bus all day. Have mercy. Been waiting for the bus all day. I got that brown paper bag and my trip on pay. Have mercy. Lord, best be packed up tight. Have mercy.
But it's easy top, great way to start the morning. Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see all of you survive the night last night. A special thanks to Volvo for the wonderful evening at the National Gallery last night. It was a great venue and a wonderful way to kick off the formal proceedings, including the Welcome to the Country ceremony by the owners of the lands. I'd like to thank Multispares as session sponsor for my address this morning, and to Australian Transit Enterprises for sponsoring the address by the Minister. The big national conference is the big show for industry, policy and forward thinking, and we've planned this event to continue to put all governments and key decision makers, key industry ideas and initiatives that we think as an industry believe will make a difference to Australia. This conference is about building on the success we achieved in setting an industry agenda at the 2011 Big National Conference in Fiji. It also builds on the momentum we've been able to achieve since establishing our National Secretariat here in Canberra in 2002. A decade ago. It really only seems like yesterday. But as they say, time flies when you're having fun. The big conference is also about our achievements over the past 12 months, and throughout this conference you'll be hearing about positive initiatives that the BIC has undertaken, such as the Moving People the Moving People for a Livable Australia. This is the follow-up work to the original research of 2 years ago, titled Moving People Solutions for a Growing Australia. This important research work is keeping the industry at the forefront of the policy debate. The work of the Australian Public Transport Industrial Association and the development of an operator IR manual to be launched later in the conference by Minister Bill Shorten. The launch in November last year by Minister Martin Ferguson of the Moving People Across Australia policy statement for the long distance, charter and express sector of our industry that focuses on the challenge for tourism and regional transport. The release of the incident guidelines for operators, recently updating of the guidelines for operators to meet accessible transport standards, and the launch today of a bus door safety advisory by the Minister, which is designed for fleet and workshop managers. This is the first of a series of safety advisories that BIC will be releasing over the coming 12 months. You'll hear more about these initiatives over the conference, but what it does clearly demonstrate is that we've progressed a good number of the outcomes from the Fiji conference. Not all, I must say, and some associations are more resistant to change and progress than others, but in my view we've moved significantly forward in regard to more effective industry representation, removal of duplication and better cooperation between our members, and that's a good start in my view 12 months on. This conference is about sending a unified message about the importance of our industry to Australia's prosperity and well-being in our cities, towns and regions at a politically critical time. In our Federal Minister, the Honourable Anthony Albanese, we have a strong supporter. In a speech given at BIC's annual industry dinner in March this year, where the Minister launched the 2030 Moving People Task Force that you'll hear more about later in the conference, he said correctly that the bus industry is the workhorse of the public transport network, and this is how we should see ourselves as an industry. The Moving People message developed by BIC over the last decade in Canberra and across Australia reflects the vitally important role we play. Our job is not about carrying people from A to B. It's about contributing to congestion management, environmental improvement and a more livable country, providing access to social, educational and employment opportunities. This is what we're about. It's not about moving buses from A to B. It's about moving people to their personal and professional needs. Our industry is important to the economic, environmental and social fabric of this great nation. We need to ensure all governments continue to provide an environment that is helpful for us to operate in so that we can deliver the outcomes I've just outlined to those communities we serve. Since the establishment of the BIC in Canberra, we have seen genuine progress in the BIC's moving people agenda. We have seen investment in public transport from the federal government. Above and beyond that, we've seen the Commonwealth Government through Infrastructure Australia starting to take a strategic view of the role of the federal government in public transport. We will hear from the Secretary of the Department, Mike Murdoch, tomorrow morning, and I'll be making it clear in my introduction to Mike that the BIC sees a greater role for the Commonwealth Department of Infrastructure and Transport to move beyond being a federal department and become a nationally focused department, a department that takes a leadership role on important transport-related issues. This includes how we move people and how the Commonwealth Department and Government can support states to get public transport provision right. This can be achieved not only through funding but through smart, incentivised policy programs. A big study visit by the industry to US and Canada recently saw this in operation, where their respective federal government programs were directly supporting transit-related initiatives and have been doing so for decades, and might I say very, very successfully. It's about the Commonwealth Department taking a strategic role to create the opportunities for states and territories to receive support for delivering positive national outcomes, which include public and active transport initiatives. The BIC has previously congratulated the federal government on the introduction of its urban policy and recognised this as a good start. The industry looks forward to working with you, Minister, on the next stage of development and growth in the programs that urban policy framework has implemented, and dare I say it, to working with a more committed Commonwealth Department in playing its role on addressing these issues. We need to break this disaggregation that seems to exist between federal and national issues, and the Commonwealth Department itself has to play a leadership role in this. I would also like to mention, Minister, the contribution that our bus industry supplier network provides to the economy, and whether it's manufacturing buses here in Australia, whether they're imported vehicles from overseas, or the manufacture of other components such as seats. The manufacturers and associated suppliers to the industry make a significant contribution to the national economy, employment and the skill set of the nation. If there was one message, Minister, for you on the manufacturing and supplier side of the industry, it would be to seek your influence to have the bus manufacturing and supplier sector recognised and supported by your colleagues in the industry and innovation portfolios. We often feel like the poor second cousin to the car industry. A key element of BIC's lobbying and moving people agenda is to ensure continuity and consistency, to have state and Commonwealth governments in lockstep with the industry in achieving good outcomes for how we move people, the livability of our cities and social inclusion. We have three main goals for this year's conference, three main achievements that we want to come away with. Firstly, a call to action for the federal government and each federal political party to continue the work that's been done to improve public transport and moving people in our cities and regions. Secondly, to engender common purpose and cooperation between federal and state governments and industry to work towards common goals. And finally, to unify and develop a single message as an industry. In conclusion, Minister, the BIC sees scope for consideration of a federal government cities portfolio and special ministry that can specifically focus on key challenges that face our cities, not only in the context of transport but also as it relates to land use management and planning and growing an ageing population. Your work and leadership has seen the start of these initiatives being addressed in a coordinated way through the Urban Policy Framework, the Urban Policy Forum and Major Cities Unit, but through the lens of infrastructure and transport portfolio. Without taking anything away from you, Minister, at all, your achievements in this policy space have been great, and I sincerely congratulate you on that. But what has been achieved through your leadership, BIC sees the need for a special portfolio and minister in this area as the next step that gives the federal, state and territory governments a dedicated focal point to address the challenges that our cities and growing regional centres face going forward. So on that welcoming and non-controversial note, Minister, I invite you to make the conference opening address. Ladies and gentlemen, would you join with me in welcoming the Honourable Anthony Albanese.
Well, thanks very much, Wayne, and also thanks, Steve, for driving us in, and Michael Apps, and to the delegates to the conference, one and all. I begin by welcoming you to Canberra, bit colder than Fiji, but you have picked not a bad time of the year to be in this great capital city. I also begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of country and pay my respect to their elders past and present. It is great to be here to be able to open your conference so soon after once again attending your annual dinner in March. And of course I arrived in style. It does say a lot about the flexibility of the humble bus. Any place, any time, a bus can do the job, even onto the stage of the National Convention Centre. I was interested to learn that this year is the 350th anniversary of the first public bus service. It never hurts to consider lessons from the past. The horse-drawn service was launched by the Frenchman Blaise Pascal in 1662. Pascal had a great concept, and at first his service proved very popular. But his business model went seriously wrong. His service was expensive and was limited by law to the aristocracy. Not surprisingly, the service eventually folded. Pascal's failed enterprise offers us several useful lessons. Firstly, an industry must always be responsive to its market, especially in price and accessibility. Secondly, Pascal's bus shows that regulation must stimulate performance, not throttle it. Finally, the story of Pascal's bus shows the need to prepare for the future. So let me turn now to something I believe has enormous implications for the future of the industry. It's pretty simple. How to get people out of their cars and onto public transport, onto bicycles, or simply onto their own 2 feet. I begin with 3 uncomfortable facts, but facts nonetheless. Firstly, urban congestion is costing us some $13 billion a year, and if not tackled, will cost us $20 billion by the year 2020. Second fact, 8 out of every 10 commuting trips in Australia today are still undertaken by car. Third uncomfortable fact, obesity is now overtaking smoking as the greatest cause of preventable disease in this country. I could add a final uncomfortable fact, which is that Australia lags well behind most other OECD countries when it comes to embracing alternatives to the car. That is why today I'm releasing a draft report prepared by my department called Walking, Riding and Access to Public Transport. It's a comprehensive position about where Australia finds ourselves today and what we can do about addressing these issues into the future. It also provides an international snapshot of what other cities are doing to attract people away from the car. We all know that Europeans are leading the revival in cycling, with some cities having a fifth of all daily journeys made by bike. But some areas of the United States, there have also been massive improvements to the way walking and cycling are being integrated into the transport systems. In fact, all federally funded transport projects must now, by law, include bicycle and pedestrian policies. New York City has built 430 k's of bike paths since 2007, and the number of New Yorkers who ride to school or work has doubled since then. In Portland in 1990, just 1% of commuters used a bike. Portland has put in almost 500 k's of bike lanes since then, and today the mode share has grown to more than 13%. Portland has now integrated cycling through its transport network and has set a target of 25% bicycle mode share by 2030. In fact, 26 American states have now introduced what's known as a complete streets policy, where different road users are given priority depending on the road and time of day. This maximises safety and ease of movement for the various transport modes. Vic Roads here in Australia has adopted a similar approach with its Smart Roads program in Melbourne and is now looking to extend it throughout Victoria. In Australia, only 1.5% of commuter journeys involve a bicycle. That said, cycle traffic is increasing by up to 18% along cycle routes in our mainland capital cities. This is encouraging, as there's a strong growth in public transport we are also seeing. But there's much more we need to do. The report proposes a raft of ways to get more people cycling and walking, primarily for short trips, but also for the commuters travelling longer distances to public transport points. It gives examples such as Perth, where secure bike lock-ups are appearing on train platforms so that cyclists can step straight from their bike onto a commuter train, or in cities such as here in Canberra, where commuters can load their bikes onto the front of a bus, or in Darwin and Sydney, where bike lock-ups are sometimes provided at bus and rail interchanges. The report suggests we should focus our attention on improving cycling and pedestrian opportunities in areas located within 20 minutes of CBDs, transport hubs and education and health campuses. Think of the bus networks and cycleways we could fund with that kind of support. If even a small percentage of short trips could be undertaken by a mode other than the private car, think of what this could do for productivity. We'd cut congestion and our carbon output and raise the livability of our cities. I stress that this report is a discussion paper. We want input. I've been a collaborative minister who's attempted to engage the sector rather than just have government produce position papers without that all-important input from the sector and from the wider community. Submissions are open until 31st of January, and I'd encourage you to have input to that. I'm also releasing today the latest report from our Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Economics. It looks specifically at population growth, jobs growth and commuting flows in Sydney, and is part of a series the Bureau is undertaking in capital cities across the country. Public transport use has risen in all Australian capitals since 2004, with the total passenger kilometres travelled by bus increasing by 15%. Turning now to safety, there is much we can do to reduce deaths and injury on Australia's roads. Last year, federal, state and territory transport ministers agreed on a new 10-year national road safety strategy. Part of that strategy was a call to vehicle manufacturers to incorporate safety features into new vehicles. I thank the Bus Industry Confederation for your work to produce the new Door Safety Advisory, which is also being launched today. Many hands were involved in its preparation: government and private bus operators, state-based industry associations, chassis and bus body manufacturers and government agencies. The advisory will help make bus door closing systems even safer, and I look forward to receiving the results of your further work on bus fire safety. The Australian community rightly values safe travel for children above anything else when it comes to transport. That's why I was very pleased that in the last budget we extended to June 2016 the Seatbelts on Regional School Buses program. This program offers subsidies to operators to voluntarily install seatbelts in school buses, and importantly, every single application up to this point has been funded. We encourage operators to take up this offer and protect the children in their care. Accidents involving heavy vehicles and buses are enormously traumatic and expensive. We need to do everything we can to prevent them. And I understand that the Confederation has presented a proposal under round 3 of the Heavy Vehicle Safety and Productivity Program, which we've extended to mid-2019 and, importantly, provided additional funding of $150 million. BIC is also, of course, very actively involved in adopting safer technology on buses. Over the next couple of years, you'll be invited to comment on 3 improvements to the safety of heavy vehicles: new design rules for anti-lock braking systems, lane departure warning systems, and advanced emergency braking systems. As always, the government appreciates the commitment to collaborative policy development, which the industry has consistently demonstrated, particularly since you've had that direct presence here in Canberra for now 10 years. I want to make some comment about the economic importance of the sector. The dominance of the car during the 20th century dictated the growth and nature of our cities. We see that particularly in this great 20th century city of Canberra, whose very creation was built on the future of the car. Yet, as I mentioned before, with the latest report from BITRA, more and more Australians are moving to trains, trams and buses to get around. The facts are that of all the public transport modes, you are the most flexible. A new bus delivered today can be on the road tomorrow or very soon after. Other modes need new infrastructure before new services and roll out, and this takes time. Technological advances from the 1820s to today's hybrid and fuel cell buses have kept buses on top of the game, literally for centuries. Your own statistics show that more than 87,000 buses operate around Australia today, and at least 80% were built here. It's a genuine manufacturing success story, and I agree that governments right across the board need to regard buses much more highly than they have in the past when it comes to industry policy, where the focus has been, I agree, car-centred. This industry has a turnover of some $3 billion over the past 5 years. The sector employs about 10,000 Australians across 19 manufacturers located in our capital cities and regional centres. So these are vital statistics which are good indeed. In just 2 months' time, we'll have our first common set of national heavy vehicle laws across Australia. One single national heavy vehicle regulator to administer these laws. Achieving this near miracle, as the Confederation knows, has been arduous. But from next year, bus operators will no longer have to deal with a mountain-high pile of compliance papers that differ depending on which side of the border you are on. These national transport reforms will boost the Australian economy, combined, each of the transport regulators, by up to $30 billion over 20 years and make our roads safer. It remains vital that key industry bodies such as the Confederation continue the goodwill and commitment that you've shown throughout the reform process and work closely with the regulator. I'll also welcome Michael Apps to the meeting of ministers that will be held in Perth next month, the Standing Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. Michael will be one of several observers at the meeting. I've introduced a change whereby the sector can actually observe the meeting, make contributions if they have something to say in front of the federal and state transport ministers. This has a big impact. It means that decisions are no longer made in some obscure hall that no one knows what's going on. And part of the difficulty we've had in driving through the national regulators has been resistance, not so much at the political level, but at the bureaucratic level. People wanting to keep their own state and territory patch going for no other reason than that's the way they've done it in the past. But we do need to move to a more nationally focused economy which is seamless. We do need to get better regulation that removes red tape, that requires people to give up their own little patches. And it's important, I believe, the industry has participated so actively in that. Modernising regulations and smart investment are, in my view, two sides of the one coin. We are revitalising Australia's road and rail through a $36 billion investment package. This includes a quantum leap in the Commonwealth's commitment to public transport, and I'm very proud of the fact that we have committed more to urban public transport since 2007 than all federal governments combined between Federation and 2007. So more in under 5 years than the previous 107 years combined. And there are some who've warned against that, of course, who speak about the sticky flypaper, I think is the term that's been used by some of my parliamentary colleagues. And there's some, I must say, across the political spectrum who've had that view in the past. My view is that as a national government, where in a country where 75% of Australians live in our capital and major cities, where 80% of our GDP is generated by those cities, a government transport department that just concentrates alone on regional roads is one that is not truly representing the national interest. That we need to be engaged, not just in our regions, but in our urban communities, in our cities. And that's why we've created the Major Cities Unit. That's why we've had the change in focus that we have. Because unless you get our cities right, then the national economy suffers. And it does require that national engagement through projects such as the Gold Coast Rapid Transit Project, which is now well underway. This project will transform how people move around one of Australia's fastest growing regions. The local bus network will connect the Gold Coast Airport and the Brisbane Heavy Rail Network with the light rail system. We've also partnered with the CityLink project in Perth, which will link the Fremantle to Perth train line with a new underground bus station. Again, an example of strategic transport investment yielding benefits across different modes. Finally, can I say I look forward to the release early next year of your Moving People 2030 report. It will prove to be, I'm sure, another valuable contribution by the Confederation to our transport future. You're preparing it in partnership with planners, logistics experts, representatives from the cycling, rail and public transport associations and even the Heart Foundation. The fact is that public transport is crucial to our future. Here in Australia, we must make public transport so affordable, so safe and so reliable that the natural choice is to leave our cars at home. Buses, those grand workhorses of our roads, will become ever more important as that happens. And with that, I'd like to formally open this conference, wish you all the best over coming days and look forward to having an informal chat with you up on the hill over dinner later this evening. Thank you.